You're watching the Common Constitutionalist Video Podcast, Special Weekday Edition. Hey there, my name is Brent Smith, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist, and welcome to a special weekday edition of the Common Constitutionalist Video Podcast. Before I begin, don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, there you go. I think that's it. I don't know. At any rate, one topic. Hopefully I'll keep it fast, we'll keep it quick. I'm hoping under 10 minutes. Mask wearing. The crock that is mask wearing. The hypocrisy that is mask wearing. The irony of mask wearing. That's what I'm going to be discussing today on the Common Constitutionalist Weekday Video Podcast. I'll be right back. Okay, now the reason why I want to talk about mask wearing, everybody and their brothers talk about mask wearing, is basically, I haven't really talked about it a whole lot, but I was watching the NFL on Sunday, and I just couldn't sit still over the hypocrisy of the mask wearing, and the non-mask wearing, and the partial mask wearing, and all the other nonsense that no one had any concern over. No one said word one. None of these nervous Nelly nanny types on the NFL shows said anything about, look at how they're wearing their masks. How irresponsible of those NFL players, or whatever. So basically what happens is that the referees, the umpire, whatever, on the field, they're older gentlemen. The zebras are the referees on the field. So they were all wearing masks all the time. The only time is that if the head ref had to go out into the middle of the field, turn his mic on, and speak, but nobody was around within 50 feet of him, so fine and dandy, okay? The real rub was when I saw the sidelines of not a single player was wearing a mask, helmeted or not, whether they had a helmet on or not, they weren't wearing masks. The coaches were wearing masks in various forms of undress, shall we say. Anytime you could, the coaches, when they were standing around, they were wearing a mask, and then they had to get into intimate contact, like face to face with players to coach them up and things like that, and they would take their mask completely off. So first off, they did the first rule of first cardinal sin is to, with your COVID fingers, touch your face, pulling your mask on and off, okay? Oh, boo-hoo. And then second, you pull the mask all the way down and you're talking like here. This is how far away they were, talking or whispering in the guy's ear or some freaking thing. Instructions, or we're sitting on the bench talking to the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, and they're face to, shoulder to shoulder and cheek to cheek practically speaking. Nobody seems to see the hypocrisy of this. No one seems to see what a bunch of crap and nonsense this is. The only people, there are two people that are two entities that have benefited from this mask nonsense. The first entity are the mask companies. The people who are actually producing these masks have basically had a windfall. They've gotten rich overnight. They can't produce them fast enough for us dim-witted lemmings to wear them. And the next is government officials, the ones that actually wield the power, and the people behind the people that wield the power. Now they have control. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was telling her that it's like baseline budgeting. This method of control, this baseline of control that they've created is like government baseline budgeting, where you spend $1 billion this year, and then you spend $1 billion plus 10% next year, that baseline doesn't remain the billion. It remains the billion one. Okay, the billion plus 10%. And then you add another 10% the following year, and then that baseline becomes a billion plus 20% or plus 10% beyond that. And that's how baseline budgeting, that's how we continue to spend more money every year despite cutting taxes or cutting expenses and all that other crap. No, we're not. Anytime you have baseline budgeting, you're forced into spending more money. It's the same with this. This is baseline control, where they've now set a precedent, a dangerous, dangerous precedent that no one else seems to care about, because they're not looking at the big picture here of what may happen. Well, what is going to happen, okay? We've gone from freedom and liberty to less freedom and liberty because we have to wear a mask. But now that's the new baseline, all right? Mask wearing is the new baseline. We will never, I mark my words, unless something drastic happens, we're never going to go back to no one wearing a mask anymore. Because the control function now is, you were told to wear a mask, we've given you enough time to get used to the mask, now everybody can wear the mask and be comfortable. A lot of people. Even when mask wearing isn't mandatory. I was at Bass Pro Shops the other day, and I walked in, and the sign said, "We strongly suggest all patrons wear a mask." That means it's not required. I stuffed my silly mask in my pocket, and I wasn't wearing one, and I was the only one in the store that wasn't wearing a mask. And I don't care. If I look like an ass maverick, I don't care. Because I'm not buying into this nonsense. I'm not buying into the COVID scare, fear-mongering nonsense. I refuse. There are still some stores I will not go into because they require me wearing a mask. Now, it's their business. They're a private store. They're a private business. That's the private sector. They are perfectly within their rights that say anybody with black rim glasses can't come into our store. I got no problem with that because you're a private sector business, okay? No problem at all. But I'm going to walk with my dollars. I'm not spending any money in your establishment until you let black rim glasses guys come in, okay? The same with masks. If you're telling me I have to wear a mask inside the store no matter what, I won't darken your door. But if you're strongly suggesting it, that's your right. That's your privilege as an American business owner. Okay, I'm just not buying into the bull crap because that's exactly what it is. And it was on no greater display than the NFL, where everybody was wearing masks in various forms of undress, so to speak, and they were pulling them off and they were putting them on and they were pulling them off and they were adjusting them and they'd pull them down to tell a joke and then they'd put it back up again, and everybody's, it's such a load of crap. Same way with airliners. Everybody's required to wear a mask and social distancing of 6 feet as they're entering the airliner, as you're boarding the flight. Once you sit down in your cramped seat with everybody shoulder to shoulder and cheek to cheek, you can take your mask off. How? Do they put the cone of no COVID on you or something? Is that what they do? Is that what they do? Because no, that's not what they do. This is all such a load of crap, and it's a function of control of the government. How much can they get away with? What's the new baseline going to look like? Now we know what the new baseline is going to look like. It's going to be mask wearing. Now, as far as the vaccine, you people know we have never been able to develop a successful vaccine for any coronavirus of any kind. Look it up. That's a fact. Look it up. Okay? We've tried with the SARS and the other vaccines. Okay? We've tried and we gave up because it just kept failing. Every time you hear of a new vaccine, a promising new vaccine, don't believe it, because it may be promising now, because I think there was one recently where it was looking really good, and then it failed like second clinical trial or something like that, second stage clinical trial, and it bombed out completely, and so they just throw it out and they have to start over again. We will never have a successful vaccine for this coronavirus unless there's some miracle happens. Might we get something like a flu shot? where you have to get it every year, which is not a vaccine, guys. Vaccines for like mumps and measles, rubella and stuff, you get one time for your entire life, and maybe a injection several years down the road to boost it, or like a booster shot or something like that. Other than that, anything less than that's not a vaccine. So we're the government's setting a precedent to control us, and that's what this is. Because the next time, they know what now they can get away with. Okay, now it's not going to be masks next time necessarily. It could be a natural disaster, a man-made disaster. It could be a medical disaster, a fake medical disaster like COVID-19 is. And I don't mean to make light of this for anybody who's lost a loved one, but about 98.7% of the loved ones who've been lost are over the age of 78 or 65 or something like that. For the vast majority of the American population, this thing it's less deadly than the flu, because the flu kills a lot more children, adolescents, teenagers, and young adults than COVID ever will. Just saying. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about. I watched the NFL yesterday. It was so stupid. I could barely watch it. It was so dumb. The display. The display of control and lemmingism, if that's even a word, is just pathetic. Wake up, people. Wake up. Mark my words, this is just the beginning. We may have to wear masks for the rest of our lives because we're not getting a vaccine or some form, and they've set the precedent for the next disaster that befalls the American population, so they can shut us down even further. Masks are the new baseline. That's all I got. See ya.